Hey folks, Chad here, Extras Trail Cameras, and today we have a pretty interesting topic that we want to touch on and talk about. It's something that we've talked on in the past and actually gotten really technical, but not super far in depth on that topic. And that topic is nighttime photo quality, nighttime images, how to make them better, why are some better than others, why do some cameras perform better than others. So there's a lot of stuff there, and it's one of the questions that we get a lot when we're at trade shows. It's one of the questions that we get a lot through email. And like I said, we've talked about it in the past, but we wanted to kind of cover the technical side of things and then also talk about the physical set of the camera location, the settings, and actually how you have that camera set up. Because in a lot of cases, the way the camera is placed and the environment that it's in is going to have as much to do with that nighttime photo quality as the actual camera and physical hardware inside that camera. So a lot of this lies with the user. So it could be a little bit subjective. So that's what we want to talk about. But first, before we get into that subjectiveness, we want to touch on some, I guess, non-subjective items. And to start, we want to talk about flash, different types of flashes. You know, there's white flash, obviously gives you color nighttime photos, and if nighttime images are super high on your priority list, if nighttime photo quality is something that is a do or die for you, you're not really using this camera for deer hunting, but you just wildlife photography, you're a hobbyist trail camera user, black flash would probably fall in that kind of last option. Using white flash cameras are going to give you nighttime color images, which traditionally are going to provide a wow factor, I guess, if for a non-deer hunter. And then when you start looking at red flash cameras and black flash cameras, they're both considered IR flash because they're in the, I guess, infrared UV spectrum on the UV spectrum. They're high enough on that wavelength to fall in that category. But red flash cameras they emit light at 640-ish nanometers on that UV spectrum, which is a lot lower than black flash. So there's more visible light emitted by that red flash camera versus the black flash camera. And what that's going to do is provide more light coming back through your lens and image sensor to create a better nighttime image. There's going to be less noise, less grain, and you can run lower ISOs. So, if nighttime images is a do or die thing for you, you'd probably consider using a red flash over a black flash. The catch is the flash is visible. So those red flash cameras do exactly that. They emit a red flash, which is going to alert any humans in the area, and it spooks the heck out of animals, at least in our opinion. So that's why you see most trail camera users, most deer hunters, people using these things for security applications use black flash. That's kind of a give and take thing, and on their priority list, making that camera less noticeable is higher than the subjectiveness of actually the nighttime photo images. So that's something we wanted to touch on right from the beginning. So while we're on the topic of hardware, I want to talk a little bit about image sensors and the actual pixel size. Again, we talked about this in some of our past marketing and I guess terminology videos, specifically about megapixels. People are advertising these crazy megapixel counts or sizes, and we kind of debunk that myth and explain why it's more of a marketing gimmick. But when you start to look at image sensors, the actual pixel size on that image sensor is going to dictate how much light is going to be allowed in or collected by that image sensor. So the larger the pixel size, the more light is going to be collected, which is going to create a better nighttime photo. So again, this is something that we don't really talk about. It's super technical. No other camera company's talking about it. And but I just wanted to mention the pixel count of your image sensor. It's going to have something to do with your nighttime photo quality, as well as the f-stop on your camera. So, the lower the f-stop, the more light is going to be allowed in through that lens and collected by the image sensor. So those are two things on the hardware side, on top of the flash unit, that are really going to help dictate what your camera is doing at night. And from a consumer perspective, the flash type is really the only thing that you're going to be able to really significantly pick and choose, what's going to be best suitable for, your your taste and your application. So moving on from hardware, we want to talk about the actual set of a camera and some, I guess, basic photography type tactics or techniques. One of the things, inside your physical camera, there are some settings that you can play with and adjust to help improve the nighttime image quality, whether that's photos or videos. And one of those being your flash intensity, your flash range. There are a lot of different cameras out there that's adjustable inside your settings. With our Lift 2 and the render camera, you can just adjust that from low, medium to high. So again, if you're really trying to improve that nighttime photo quality, you're going to want to run that on a higher setting, so that flash is just longer emitted for a longer period of time, and it's more intensified versus running that on a medium or low setting. So that's one thing you can adjust. The second thing to take note of is the actual burst count that you're running these things on. Now that's not going to be applicable for video mode, but in photo mode it will be. And what you're trying to combat there is really motion blur. Motion blur is a happening, or it's caused by longer shutter speeds that have to be longer to collect light to actually physically take that photo. So the less light, the longer the exposure time needs to be. The longer the exposure time is, the more likely you are to have motion blur in that actual photo. So to combat that, one of the things that we do and we recommend to people is running a 2 or 3 shot burst. If this is, nighttime photo quality is high on your priority list. But by shooting a 1 or 2, 3 shot burst, that flash is going to be emitted that entire sequence. So it's just not going to go off once. It's going to go off once and stay on for 3 consecutive photos while those 3 photos are taken. So there's going to be a little more light there, and also a little bit of luck. While you're taking those 3 pictures, the odds of one of those 3 not having motion blur are a heck of a lot higher than capturing a single image with a deer coming in the frame, being triggered by your PIR, and then snapping a single photo. When that sequence or burst count actually happens, there's 1, 2, 3 shots being taken and being recorded to your SD card, and 75-80% of the time, at least 1, maybe 2 of those shots are going to be pristine, nice quality without any motion blur. So the last thing we want to touch on, and probably the most important to you as trail camera users, is some basic photography techniques and I guess some physics theories, material property theories that are true and non-subjective and can actually make a big difference in how you set your cameras up for some nighttime photo images or photo quality. And one of those things that I think happens a lot to all trail camera users is you're on a field edge or a food plot, ag field, and you set a camera up on the edge of that food plot. You get some nighttime images, and you quickly notice that those images are darker, there's more noise, and they're a little bit grainy. The flash range actually doesn't look like it's as long, and overall the nighttime image quality is just not as pristine or not as crisp, not as good as what you would get in a wooded setting. And there's a reason for that. There are, we basically touched on different flash types and the concept of light being emitted, artificial light being emitted to capture that nighttime image. But what happens is when you have no backdrop, there's no background for that flash to be caught on or to be reflected back to that lens, that light is just going to go out into space and kind of dissipate, where the camera's not going to have the opportunity to actually allow that light to come back to the image sensor. So the things are happening super, super fast, and we're talking microseconds all this happens. But typically that's what's causing darker nighttime images on those open field edge food plot settings where there's no background. When you have a backdrop, what's happening is when that flash goes off, 2 things are happening. One, every material in this world has some type of light absorption property, and that's going to be different if it's tree bark versus a mirror. Those properties are going to be different. But when you have something that is the light is able to bounce off of or be retroreflective, so that just means retro, straight backwards. It's reflected straight backwards towards the source, or that light's actually being held and absorbed by that object. The camera is going to have more time to capture more light, and overall you're going to end up with better nighttime pictures. So Again, that's not, we try to dumb that down as much as we can, but you know, if you took physics class in high school or some kind of material properties class in college or something like that, those terms and those thoughts, those theories are really, you probably understand them, I guess. So with hanging these cameras on field edges, if at all possible, if you're on an inside corner where you can kind of point or aim that camera, instead of casting it out where that field of view is out into the open field, if you can point that back and get to an inside corner, that other edge of the field, that's really the ideal setting for a field edge type setting for high quality nighttime images, because you have that background within that flash range, either reflecting that light back to the camera, or absorbing that light, allowing the camera to collect better nighttime images. So just keep that in mind when you're setting these cameras up. If you're in a scenario where you don't have any background and you really do want to set your camera up on a field edge and you are worried about those nighttime images, one of the things you could do is elevate your camera. And when you get your camera elevated up, you can point that down on the ground, and that same theory or same concept is going to apply. You're going to have angular reflection. It's not going to be retroreflective where it's coming straight back to the camera, but you're still going to have that reflective property off the ground where that camera's pointed, and the light's going to be there a little bit longer. So that's considered angular reflection, where if you think about it as if you were a kid in high school or junior high, maybe you were wearing a wristwatch, and you saw that light, the sun come in through a window, and you used your watch to shine it on teacher's face. That's angular reflection. Same kind of concept. I know that sounds pretty goofy, but I know there's probably some people watching this video that have done that. So the last thing I want to mention, or one of the last things I want to mention, is power sources. And we harp on this all the time. Alkalines versus lithiums, lithiums versus rechargeables, rechargeables versus externals. And giving your camera the proper power does make a difference, not only the detection area, but also the flash range. When you start to use alkaline batteries and their discharge rate, if you were to look at a graph, is basically straight down. So every time that camera is taking a picture, drawing power, it has voltage drop. As that voltage drop happens, when you get below 1.3 volts, 1.2 volts, the camera is not going to operate correctly, and it's going to start sacrificing functions. And one of the first things that it'll start sacrificing is that power supply to your flash. So you can almost think of that as like, your body going into hypothermia, and the first thing it cuts off with circulation is your extremities to keep your core warm. So it's the same concept, same idea, but proper voltage, proper power to your cameras will make all the difference in the world when you're looking at nighttime camera function. So with all of this being said, we're out here running cameras to collect data on deer. We're out here hanging these things to help us understand our deer herd, to help pattern bucks, to ultimately give us the opportunity to harvest the animal come fall. So at the end of the day, you got to put the cameras where you're going to get pictures of deer. So don't let any of this deter you from not putting a camera in a specific spot because you think the nighttime photos aren't going to be that good. You got to put the cameras where the deer are, and if it means bad nighttime images or lesser quality nighttime images, I'm okay with that. That's something that I can live with if it's going to increase my odds to harvest that buck come fall. That's my main priority. That is the only goal with using these as scouting tools. It is a tool. I'm not using them as hobbyists, but if you are a hobbyist, wildlife photographer, or a person that has ultra high priority of capturing quality nighttime images, just keep that stuff in mind. If you guys have any questions, comments on this topic, on this video, please leave them below. We're very humbled by all the support on this channel, all the comments, all the interactions. So if you find value, leave us a thumbs up and smash that subscribe button for us.